with a prayer. This is on page 172 of Universal Prayers. The top of page 172, the first one. This is from the Shiva Mahimna Stotram, by now familiar to you. This shloka, this verse, explains the infinite glories of God. The glories of God are infinite, cannot be exhausted, cannot be described in words. Om Asitagiri samam syat kajjalam sindhu patre surataru varashaka lekani patra murvi likhati yadi grihitva sharada sarvakalam tadapi tava gunanam ishaparam nayati. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Using the biggest branch of the celestial tree as the writing instrument, the ocean as the ink pot, and the blue mountain as the ink, and using the whole earth as the writing surface. If the goddess of learning, Sarada, were to write till eternity, even then, O Lord, your glories cannot be fully described. Om peace, may there be peace in our hearts, may there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, may there be peace everywhere in nature. Let us continue from 17 onwards. In the 16th verse, Bhagavan Shri Krishna said something which is familiar to us by now from earlier chapters. As we observe the universe, visible universe, with our minds and sense organs, we see duality there. Those who have the keen perception, they can see besides the human physical personality, there is something subtler. There is this part of the divine in every being. So that we can perceive. We may not be able to see directly as we are saying the body, mind, but there is something besides the visible physical body. That we can call it the Atman, soul, God's presence, that is there. So these two things are there. That was what sloka number 16 said. Dvavimau purushau loke ksharascha kshara evacha. Purusha here does not mean a human being. The word Purusha has many meanings. Here it means two entities, two categories in this world, loke. Dvavimau purushau loke. What are they? Two things are there in everything. Kshara, akshara. In the 13th chapter we studied kshetra, kshetrajna. Two things in everything. Same way, similar. Kshara means the perishable part of our personality, the physical body, and some part of the subtle body also. They will all go away when life ends. But something remains. That is the divine presence within us. That does not go away. That we know from earlier chapter, 2nd chapter. Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, Sloka 20 in chapter 2. Please remember that one. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Sharira means the physical body. When that ends, Atmana hanyate, the divine presence will not end. It will continue. This eternal. Material part is ephemeral, temporary, changes, comes and goes. But the divine part in us is eternal, permanent, unchanging. That will remain. So here in this 15th chapter, they are called Kshara Akshar, the perishable part Kshara. Akshara means the imperishable Atman. The term Akshara came before in the 8th chapter. We should try to go back and recollect what we studied earlier. Chapter 8 began with Arjuna's 7 questions in the first 2 slokas. The first question Arjuna asked was, what is Brahma? Kim Tad Brahma? That's how the chapter begins, chapter 8. And Bhagwan's answer was given to that. Those 7 questions he answered. The first answer to the first question, the answer to the first question is Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Brahman is Akshara. Akshara is Brahman. Brahma Paramam. Paramam. Supreme reality Brahman is Akshara, imperishable. Akshara means imperishable. Eternal, infinite, unchanging, all those things. So those 2 things are there. Now, these are in each personality, especially human beings. But if you take the whole big picture, whole universe, and beyond the universe also, there is supreme reality Brahman. That is ultimate reality, Brahman in the Upanishads. That is being described in the 17th verse. But in a different way, easier to understand. The description of Brahman in the Upanishad is very brief. There's Satyam Ganam Anantam Brahma, like this it says in Taittiriya Upanishad. But no explanation. But here Sri Krishna makes it easy for us to understand that Brahman, presenting it in a personal way that we can relate to, we can understand, can relate to God. So that is explained in verse number 17. Uttama Purushastvanyah Paramatmetyudahritah Yo Lokatrayama Vishya Bibhartyavyaya Ishvaraha. If you separate the words, it becomes easy to understand. Uttama Purusha tu Anyaha. The word tu is there hidden there. This Sandhi combination, we have to separate the words. Uttama Purushaha tu Anyaha. Purushastvanyaha. 3 words are there. Tu means however. Uttama Purusha, Anya. Anya means other, different, other than the 2 mentioned in the previous sloka. Akshara, Akshara. Besides those 2, Anyaha, Uttama Purusha. Supreme being. Purusha means being. Supreme being. Paramatma iti udahrata, known as Paramatman, is there. These 2 are Akshara, Akshara, his manifestations, physical, spiritual, part in every being, and supreme reality above everything. Uttama Purusha. This Uttama Purusha or Purushottama. Purushottama is the name of this chapter. Purushottama Yoga. Purushottama means the supreme being. Uttama means the best. Sarva Sreshta. Sreshta. Tama means superlative degree. Uttama Sreshta. Best. Supreme being. He is known as Paramatma. He is known by different names and different contexts from different points of view. We call him Bhagavan when he appears in a human form. And we call him Brahman in the impersonal reality in the Upanishads. We call him Purushottama here in the Gita, in the Puranas also. When the same reality appears in a tangible human form, it becomes easy for us to relate to. We can relate to God when he appears in a human form. Out of compassion for human beings, the Lord descends into the human world and appears as a human being. So we can relate to him, love him, worship him, explain our problems to him. Oh God, I have this problem. We do all of that one when we see a personal God. We cannot do any of that with Brahman. pure consciousness cannot communicate with pure consciousness. All pervasive, nameless, formless, attributeless. Purushottama is good. Uttama Purushastvanya Paramatmetyudavrata, known as Paramatma. How does he exist? Lokatrayam Avishya. Avishya means having entered into the three worlds, pervading the three worlds. Lokatrayam. Three worlds means, in earlier days, they thought three worlds means Bhurbhuva Swaha, as we say in the Gayatri Mantra. Bhu means this earth. Bhuva means the interspace. And Swaha means the Devaloka, the world above. But in Puranas, they talk about 14 lokas, not 3, but 14 lokas. 7 above, 7 below. But these are all various perspectives. Now, modern astrophysics says this endless universe. Recently, the Webb telescope brought out a picture of a huge black hole in the middle of right in the middle of our own Milky Way galaxy. So huge. So all these views are being made available to us now, thanks to modern science and technology. It's all different views. Lokatre Mahavishya, pervading all these worlds, whatever is their whole cosmos, pervading the whole cosmos, Lokatre Mahavishya. What does the Lord do? Ishvaraha Vibharti. Vibharti means he upholds, supports. As you saw before in the earlier part of this chapter, his power supports, makes everything possible. It's God's power that makes the sun shine, the moon shine, the fire burn, and all other things function. All beings live and function because of God's power in them. That we saw before in the earlier part of this chapter. Vibharti, he upholds, he protects, he supports the whole universe. He is Avyaya Ishvara. Avyaya means imperishable. Bodies are perishable. Ishvara is imperishable, eternal, infinite. The description of the Purushottama in this chapter. Now we go to the next sloka. Sloka number 18. Yasmat ksharamati toham aksharaadapi chottamaha atosmi loke vedecha prathita purushottamaha. Purushottama is being described here in this sloka. He, in the first person, the Lord is speaking directly to us. The Lord himself is speaking to us about his own nature. Yasmat ksharam atitaha aham. You see the word aham there, hidden there. Ksharamati to aham. Aham means I. The Supreme Lord himself is speaking to us directly. Aham atitaha. Atita means transcending, above everything. Transcending ksharam aksharadepi. Beyond the perishable and the imperishable element in all beings, he is superior, above all of these things, transcending all these things. Yasmat ksharamati toham aksharadepi cha uttamaha. Even higher than the akshara, the individual self, jivatma. In each one of us, there is a divine element. Combining that with the embodiment, we call it jivatma, that unit. Transcending that also, Paramatma. That Paramatma Uttamaha, the best, supreme, superior to Akshara and Akshara. Ataha, therefore, Lokecha Vedesha Purushottama iti Prathitaha. Prathitaha means he is celebrated, he is very well known. We talk about God as Purushottama, or in similar terms, Bhagavan, Paramatma, God, like that, many different ways we refer to that supreme reality. And in personal God, we have so many different names and aspects and forms. All of them represent the same one reality. Lokecha Vedecha Pratitaha, known in the world. Loka means people in the world speak about God in different ways, using different names and worshipping him in different forms. Vedecha in the scriptures, in the Vedas also is known in differently by different names and forms. Lokecha Vedeta Pratitaha Asmi Purushottama Aham. He is describing himself. I am the Purushottama, supreme being, known in the world by people and described in the scriptures, Vedas and other scriptures. Other holy scriptures also describe God in different ways, but he is only one. So this is a description of Purushottama, superior, supreme. Now we go to the next sloka. The next two slokas, 19 and 20, they are the concluding slokas. We can say in a way they are like a palashruti. At the end of every hymn, stotra, there is a palashruti. What is the benefit of studying this knowledge? What do we gain by studying this? Purushottama Yoga. That is being explained here in 19th and 20th slokas. Sloka number 19. Yo mamevamasam mudho janati purushottamam sasarva vidbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Yaha means that person who, yaha, mam means me. The Lord is speaking. Evam, in this way, saha yaha asammudaha. Asammuda means a wise person. Muda means a person who cannot think deeply on any profound topic. Limited kind of thinking is muda. Making wrong choices and getting into trouble, such people. Asammuda means wise person who is endowed with intelligence, undiluted, it says. Asammuda. Such a person, man purushottamam janati. Janati means he who knows. Yaha janati. A wise person who knows me as Purushottama, as described in this chapter, such a person, what does he or she do? Saha, such a person, sarvavit, knower of everything. Sarvavit. Man bhajati, worships me. Bhajati means worships me means worship can be in any form, need not be only ritualistic worship. Even thinking about God, repeating God's name is also a kind of worship. Japa stotra. Chanting hymns in praise of God in any language, that's also a kind of worship of God. Serving other beings, seeing God's presence in them is also worship of God. This in the Bhagavatam, but it was forgotten. In the Bhagavata it says, instead of worshipping images in the temples, why not worship God, me, the divine presence, me present in all the living beings, people, animals, and plants. In them, God is present. In a living, vibrant form, He is present. Better to worship Him in that living form. How to worship people? Helping needy people. Hungry person is there, give some food, this kind of worship. But that kind of worship has to be done with humility. As Swamiji says, Swami Vivekananda says, when we give some charity or do some help to a needy person, we should not stand in a high pedestal and say, I'm helping you, I have more. I'm giving you this dana, this charity for you. Not like that. Not with a standing on a pedestal, but with great humility, thanking the person who is giving us a chance to serve him or her. Because he is there, the needy person, I can use that opportunity to serve him or her, thereby making myself a better person. We serve, we help ourselves, not the world. Please remember that the title of the lecture, in the Karma Yoga book of Swamiji. We help ourselves, not the world. When we think we are helping other people, that is wrong understanding, misperception, I am helping myself when I try to help others. How does it help me? Because I become unselfish and I become a better person. My personality becomes enriched, purified, unselfish. Then to that extent, I am approaching divinity. The more unselfish we are by serving other people without any selfish expectation from that service, the more unselfish we become, the closer we approach God. If we become totally unselfish, 100%, then only God remains. The I merges in him. That's why Swamiji said, very famous sentence, please remember, only three words in that sentence. Unselfishness is God. All this comes from the word bhajati in the second line of sloka number 19. Yomam bhajati. A person worships me in many different ways, including serving the needy and the poor, the sick and the destitute, including animals and plants. Such a person, sarvabhavena mam bhajati, he is a true devotee. In every way, sarvabhavena, in all possible ways, a person should worship the divine presence in all and everything, not limited to living beings, including inanimate beings also. In them also God is present, but because you cannot see clearly, God's presence is not clearly manifest in non-living beings, more clearly manifest in living beings, most clearly manifest in human beings, among the human beings also. This is what Swami Sri Ramakrishna said. God is present in all and everything, including inanimate objects, unmoving, moving objects. But God's presence is most clearly visible in human form, human beings. So any little service that we do, even saying a few kind words to a person who is suffering, going through some problem, we cannot take away that person's problem. But we can say a few kind words, console that person, be with that person, hold that person's hand. A person is sick, lying on the bed. What can we do? We can just stay, visit that person, hold his hand, I am with you. No words need be spoken. That is consolation. That is a kind of help. In any way, we can sarvabhavena yomam bhajati. Sahamam bhajati. Such a person who sees God in all and everything worships me in every possible way. Sarvabhavena bhajati. That's what we have to do. Bhajati. Sarvabhavena sarvatma chittataya evarata. He adores me as dwelling in all, as the self of all, O Bharata Prince. Now we go to the last sloka of this 15th chapter. Iti guhyatamam shastram idamuktam mayanagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. Iti, in this way, iti means thus. As explained in the previous 19 slokas, thus, idam, you see the word idam hidden there, shastram idam muktam. Shastram idam muktam. Idam means this. Idam shastram, this knowledge. Shastra means knowledge, systematic knowledge of the self, of Purushottama. Idam shastram maya uktam, explained, told by me, explained by me. This knowledge of the self, of Purushottama, as explained by me in this chapter and earlier chapters too. Anagam. Anagam means what? What is the meaning of anaga? Sinless person, pure person. Agha means sin. Anagha means sinless person. Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna as Anagha. Anagha means a person who has not committed any sins. Such people are rare, but there are such people. So Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna as Anaga. Maya idamuktam shastram. What kind of shastra is this one? Purushottama Yoga. Guhyatamam shastram. Guhya means secret or hidden. You see the word guha? Guha means a cave. Cave means where something is hidden, we cannot see from outside. In the same way, this knowledge is hidden from view. Not in a physical sense. Anybody can buy a book of Gita, translation, all the languages, Upanishads, you can buy, read. Everything is available in every language. It's not hidden from us in that way. But unless the mind is fully prepared, we cannot grasp the meaning of what we read. They are just words. Like that. The mind must be fully prepared to grasp the meaning of Bhagavad Gita or Sloka or any other scripture. Without preparation, if you simply read, just like reading any other novel, from beginning to end, I've studied Gita, all 18 chapters, and keep the book aside, that kind of reading is of no use at all. Guhyatamam Shastra means the Shastra which is knowable only by a person who has prepared the mind. That came earlier in this chapter. Yatanto yoginas chainam pasyantятманьяваститам yatanto pyakartatmanaha nainam pashyanti achetasaha. Akartatmana means person whose mind is not prepared to grasp the subtle meaning of the scriptures. Verbal meaning anybody can read in any language, but the inner meaning, true meaning, import, subtle meaning of the scriptures becomes known only to a person whose mind is relatively pure. Otherwise, study of scriptures will be scholarly study. There are many great scholars who know all the scriptures very well, but not necessarily they are knowers of God. They study it as a profession. They write books and articles and present papers in conferences about God and all kinds of philosophy, everything. But that is the one kind of knowledge, scholarly knowledge. That is not of much use. Real knowledge is gained by mind, which is pure. Purity of mind is necessary. Guhyatamam Shastram, this most secret science, knowledge of God. Iti Guhyatamam Shastram Maya Uktam has been explained to you, O sinless Arjuna. Etad Shastram, this knowledge of God, Buddhva, knowing this one. Buddhva means having clearly grasped this knowledge. Buddhiman kritakrityaha syat. Buddhiman means a wise person. A dull person cannot grasp the real meaning of scriptures. Mind has to be sharp and able to perceive subtle realities. Not just the gross meaning, but the subtle truth behind the words, one should be able to grasp. That requires a mind that is pure and also very sharp. In the Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, it says, this Atman is present in all and everything. In everyone, God is present even now. He has never been absent. But we don't see God's presence. We will see only the body and the mind, what that person is wearing, what he speaks, what does he do. This is all we see. We miss the most important part. Why that is happening? Because our minds are not prepared to see the subtle reality behind the physical appearance. So there's a nice sloka in the Upanishad. It says, Yesha sarveshu bhuteshu gudaha atma na prakashate. Yesha atma, this Atman, which we call Purushottama in this chapter in the Gita. Sarveshu bhuteshu, in all the beings, without any exception, moving, unmoving, living, non-living, big and small. Sarveshu bhuteshu yesha atma gudaha, remains hidden. Guda means remains hidden. Gupta. Na prakashate, does not come out and publicize itself. Look at me, I am Atman, I am God. No. that it remains hidden behind the body mind. Then how do we see if he always remains hidden from you? However, it can be seen. Drishyate can be seen. God can be seen. We can experience God's presence in all and everything, including ourselves. How? By what means? Agriyaya buddhya, sukshmaya buddhya. By whom? Sukshmadarshibhihi. By those people who have purified their mind and have cultivated the ability to see the subtle reality behind the gross appearance. Sukshmadarshan means one who sees the subtle things. Almost everybody sees the gross things, but very few people can see the subtle reality behind the gross personality. Sukshmadarshibhihi. How? By what means? Sukshmaya buddhya, agriyaya buddhya. Buddhi means intellect, sharp intellect. Agra means sharp. Sukshmaya buddhya, yes, the intellect which can see, which can perceive subtle reality. By such people, God can be seen all the time. God is present, visible to us. But we have to have the vision to see his presence in all and everything. For that, we have to purify our minds. All spiritual practices are meant only to accomplish one thing, namely to make the mind pure and be able to see the subtle reality behind the gross appearance of things. In everyone, in everything, we can see God. This is what the earlier Vedic people, in the Vedic ages, earlier stages of the Veda, they worshipped whole of nature. They saw the presence of God in the sun, in the moon, in fire, in the earth, in water, in air, in the mountain, in all the animals. Everywhere they saw God. That's why they worshipped everything. Some people don't understand. They make fun of us. These you Hindu people, you worship elephants and monkeys and everything. They cannot grasp what the earlier Vedic people saw. They saw God in all and everything. Nothing is without presence of God. So where can we not worship God? It's present in everything. That's the vision they had. So we can cultivate that vision. Drishyate tvagriyaya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibhihi. So that's what he's referring to in the 20th sloka, second line. Etad buddha buddhiman syat. Buddhiman means a person who has a sharp intellect, pure mind, required to see the divine presence in all and everything hidden behind the physical personality, appearance. Buddha buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. When a person succeeds in seeing the divine presence in all, then that person will have met the goal of life, fulfilled the goal of life. Kritakritya will become. Buddha buddhiman syat. Buddhiman means some people are very clever in the worldly sense. In a worldly way, they are very clever. For example, the people who do computer hacking, they know a lot more about computers than an ordinary user of computer. They can get into somebody's computer and steal whatever information they have, bank account, they can hack into that, and all kinds of things they can do. They are very intelligent. But that kind of intelligence is ruinous. It ruins the person. In the short run, it may bring some advantage, but in the long run, that person will have to regret, pay for every wrong action. Karma catches up with that person and a lot of suffering will come. That kind of intelligence is of not use. It's not the kind of intelligence buddhiman we are referring to here. A person who has pure buddhi, sattvic buddhi. In the 18th chapter, Bhagavan is going to describe buddhi as being sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Like everything else in nature, buddhi is also subject to the three gunas that we studied in the 14th chapter. Come again in 17 and 18 chapters. Then sloka number 30, 31, 32. In chapter 18. We study that in detail when we get there. Right now, a quick reference to Sattvic Buddhi in 18th chapter, sloka number 30, 31, 32. What is a Sattvic Buddhi? which is required for seeing God in everything. A tamasic buddhi cannot see God in anything. A sattvic buddhi can see God in everything. That's the big difference. So let us quickly go back. You don't have to study it in detail right now. Chapter 18. Where is the sloka number? 50, 30, 42, 33. Here it is. Sattviki buddhi. Sattvic buddhi described in sloka number 30, 1830. There he says, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham cha ya vetti buddhissa partha sattviki. Sattvic buddhi. We have to cultivate. We can cultivate. Everybody can. Everyone has the potential. No one is excluded. But we have to have the will to do that one. We must be interested in doing that one and we have to work for it. Otherwise, it will not happen without a little bit of effort on our part, plus God's grace. Here it says, that intellect is sattvic, O Arjuna, which knows action and inaction. That came in the fourth chapter. What is karya, what is karma, what is akarma? Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. Karya karye bhaya bhaye. Duty and non-duty. Karya means something which we have to do. Akarya means something which we should not do. That difference many people don't know. They end up doing things they should not be doing, making wrong choices and getting into a lot of trouble. Newspaper is full of such stories. People making wrong choices, doing things which they should not be doing, and failing to do things which they should be doing. Two kinds of error. Error type 1, error type 2, error as statisticians talk about. Error of commission, error of omission. Doing things you should not be done, one kind of error. Telling lies and cheating, etc. They should not be done. People end up doing those things to gain some advantage or money or power or anything. And failing to do things which you should be doing every day. Prayer to God and study of scriptures and charity and prayer, all those things we should be doing. We don't do that one regularly. That is error of omission. Both these kinds of errors will be detrimental in spiritual life. But a person with sattvic buddhi knows the difference. What is to be done, what is not to be done. Karya karye bhaya bhaye. What is to be afraid of, what is not to be afraid of. Bandham moksham chaya veti. What is bondage? Bandham. What is moksha? What is liberation? A sattvic person knows. An ordinary person thinks that what is pleasant is liberating. No, it's opposite. It's binding. We get into situations and do choices which bind us in the long run. That we don't know the difference between what binds and what liberates. Bandham moksha. Sattvic buddhi knows that distinction. Viveka. Buddhissa partha sattviki. And then rajasic, tamasic buddhi will postpone. Sattvic buddhi is what we should be doing. Buddhiman etad. Coming back to verse 20. Etad buddhva buddhiman syat. Kritakrityascha bharata. What such a person, how is he described? Kritakritya is known as a kritakritya. Karma means action. Krita means action that has been done. Kritya means that has to be done. A person who has done all the actions that one is expected to do, such a person is called a kritakritya. We become a kritakritya only when we know God. No matter what else we do, however much we may accomplish in this worldly sense, however much famous a person can become, however much rich a person, property a person can accumulate, or whatever, a person will not have done the duty that he is required to do, he or she is required to do, until one reaches God. That's the reason, the only reason why we are born as human beings. We are being given this precious human birth is to know God. If you don't do that one, no matter what else we do, however much we accomplish, we will not have achieved the goal of life. We will not become kritakritya. We become kritakritya only when we know our true self and know God. When we know God. Such a person becomes a kritakrityascha bharata. Only when we recognize God's presence, experience God's presence in a tangible way. Not only in us, in everything, in every being, animate and inanimate, in every situation, in every action, God's presence. That's the goal of human life. It's a little bit distant goal, difficult to achieve. I'm not saying it's easy or anything, but you have to keep it in view. That's the goal. That's why I'm born. That's why I have been given this human birth. Etad buddha buddhiman syad kritakrityascha bharata. That is the conclusion. Iti guhyatamam shastram, the supreme knowledge, which is hidden from you, from unprepared minds. Guhyatamam shastram, maya uktam, has been explained to you, O Anaga, O sinless Arjuna. Etad buddha, knowing this one, studying this carefully, buddhiman, a wise, intelligent person, endowed with sattvic buddhi. Not a clever person who can cheat others. Sattvic buddhi. Such a person, kritakrityascha syat, he will become a fulfilled person. He will have fulfilled the purpose of human birth, goal of human life. That's the conclusion of this chapter. So in this chapter, very interesting slokas have come. The divine presence in all, in the sun, in the moon. It's only God's power that makes everything function. Yada adityagatam tejo jagadvasayate kelam. Adityagatam tejaha. The teja means the effulgence, the power, the ability to shine, produce lot of energy, life-sustaining energy in the sun. Yachandramasi, chandrama, moon. In the moon has the power to convert the blazing hot sunlight into cool, soothing moonlight. That power is due to presence of God in the moon, God's power in the moon. Yacha agnav, fire can burn everything, provide warmth. Without warmth, if it is very cold, we cannot live. In outer planets, the sunlight does not reach enough. Everything is cold. No life can exist there. If you're too close to the sun, it is too much heat. Like Mercury and Venus, too hot, we can't live there. Earth is in the optimum distance, God's grace. Enough warmth is there, but not too much warmth. That's all because of God's power. Yachandramasi yachagnav tattejo vidhi mamakam. Know that effulgence power to be mine. Mamakam means mine. God's power in everything. In every cell, his power is there, as we saw before. Every cell in the human body and other living bodies functions as if autonomously. Every cell knows exactly what to do. Different cells in different parts of the body do different functions. How do you know? How is the intelligence encoded in every cell? Divine power in every cell. You ask the cell biologists, they will tell you how many things are going on in every individual cell. So small, you can't see with even a light telescope, microscope, you cannot see. We require an electron microscope, which can magnify hundreds of thousands of times a small cell. So many things are happening there in every living cell. What is the power that makes all these things possible? The divine presence in everything. So that is the essence of this chapter. And all actions have to be done keeping in mind the divine presence in all and everything, including eating. Specifically, eating is mentioned here in this verse. Aham Vaishvanaro bhutva praninam dehamashtritaha. In the form of Vaishvanara, digestive power, digestive fire of digestion, I am present in the bodies of all living beings. Pranam deham, not only in people, animals and plants too. They also digest food. How does he do that one? Prana apana samayuktaham. In association with the 5 pranas, 5 functional parts of pranas. Prana is one, but it has 5 different functions. Prana apana samayuktaha What does he do there in our bodies? Chaturvidam annam pachami, digests all kinds of food. Once we eat the food, then what more can we do? Digestion happens by the Lord's power in our body, animal's body, plant body too. Digesting the food, sorting the useful from the useless part that we eat, discarding the useless part, very important function. Apana prana is the one that eliminates the waste product through the downward outlets. Otherwise, problem will be there. Elimination, if elimination is not there. How that is possible? Divine presence in our bodies. So that is how this divine presence has to be seen in all and everything. Purushottama in a personal way. You can relate to God in a personal way. There is Purushottama Yoga. We will stop that here. And we begin the next chapter, which is a relatively easy chapter. There's not much philosophy or anything there, mostly practical. See, Bhagavad Gita has two kinds of knowledge in it. What are they? Adhyatma Vidya, Yoga Shastra. At the end of every chapter, we say, at the end of 15th chapter, we should be saying, Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishads Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishnarjuna Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nama Panchadashodhyaya. This we should say at the end of every chapter. It is Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishads. See, Bhagavad Gita is not a Upanishad. It's a part of Mahabharata. It is a Smriti scripture. It's an epic, part of an epic, bigger epic. But still, it enjoys same status as an Upanishad because of the knowledge it contains. Lord himself has given the knowledge of truth. It enjoys same status as an Upanishad. Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, so Brahma Vidyayam, Yoga Shastra. It has Brahma Vidya, Yoga Shastra both. Brahma Vidya means knowledge of the self. What's the reality, the nature of the divine presence within us, all that it has come in the Gita. Second part, more important part in the Gita is Yoga Shastra. How to put this into practice, how to realize God, how to realize our divine presence within us and see God in all and everything. How to, practical step 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the important part in the Gita. Not so much philosophy, but Yoga Shastra. Yoga Shastra, Sri Krishnarjuna Samvade. How is it presented? In the form of a conversation. Samvada means conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And the Kurukshetra battlefield. Krishnarjuna Samvade Purushottama Yoga Nama Panchadashodhyaya. This 15th chapter is called Purushottama Yoga. So this in the 16th chapter, we see mostly practical things, not so much philosophy. Things that we have to do and things that we have to refrain from doing. What to do, what not to do. Those are all they will come up for detailed discussion, study in the 16th chapter. We'll begin the 16th chapter. The first verse itself has 9 instructions, 9 things to do. First 3 verses in the 16th chapter, they describe what is called Daivi Sampat. We have 2 kinds of treasures. Sampat means wealth. We think money is the wealth. If you acquire more money, more property, a big house, expensive car, we think those things are wealth, the ordinary person thing. No, they are not real wealth. They come and go. They only serve a temporary purpose for a very short period of time. Because they have to be acquired with effort. And when if we inherit them, they'll not be with us. And when old age comes, death comes, we can't enjoy the property. It's all there in the bank, money is there. No, that is not real wealth. This very temporary kind of thing. Real wealth is our virtues. Those virtues which enrich our life, which make it possible for us to know our true nature, to know God. That is the real wealth. That's called Sampat, Daivi Sampat, divine qualities, as opposed to Asuri Sampat. Asura means a demon, a Rakshasa, always ending up doing wrong things. You don't want that kind of wealth. That is also described here. Both are described. So we can know the difference and refrain from doing asuri qualities and choose to do only pursue only Daivi Sampat. That's the reason why this is being presented here in this chapter 16. Let us begin with the first sloka here. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam. Next two slokas also, there are description of the Daivi Sampat. That means divine virtues, divine quality, which we all have to cultivate. Each one of these, very important part of the Yoga Shastra in the Gita. First one itself is very important. Abhayam, freedom from fear. The one thing that Vedanta promises is freedom from fear. Everything in this world is fraught with fear. There was a great sage named Bhartrhari, and he said that everything in human life is associated with fear. For example, he says, if you have money, the fear of loss is there. If you have health and beauty and youth, that will go away one day. That fear of losing the youth and beauty will always be there. That's why you do so many things to appear youthful, even when you're long past the age of youth. That kind of fear is there. So no, the only thing that makes us free from fear is Vairagya. So Bhartrhari says, Sarvam masta bhayanvitam bhavendrana vairagyameva bhayam. Bhuvi means in this world, that means in human life. Sarvam masta bhayanvitam. Everything is associated with fear. There's nothing that comes without fear. Everything causes fear. One thing is which grants us fearlessness, that is vairagyameva bhayam, total detachment. As Gita teaches, one summary of Gita in one word is detachment. That alone can confer total permanent freedom from fear. Abhayam. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the topic of fear has come in the conversation between Yajnavalkya and Janaka, two great Brahmagyanis. Janaka was a Brahmagyani, he was a king with all the kingdom, but still total detachment, not attached to anything. Though he had the whole kingdom, ordinary people having only small thing, property, they become attached to it. But this Janaka was a king with the kingdom, treasury, wealth, money, everything, but still totally unattached. Brahmagyani. And Yajnavalkya was the greatest among the sages during that period of time. Conversation between them, the topic of fear comes. There Yajnavalkya says, why fear comes? Because all fear comes from the external source. If I'm by myself, then what is there to be afraid of? People are afraid to remain alone, especially at night in a very big building, because they're afraid of ghosts and they're afraid of burglars breaking into the house. I'm alone. Nobody is there to help me. That fear is there when you're alone. But alone means I'm afraid of something, a ghost coming to bother me or a burglar breaking into my house. That burglar is there, the ghost is there. I know they are present. I don't want them to come and bother me in my house. I'm alone. Nobody else is there to call when I need. Such is the nature of fear. Fear comes from second object. Very famous sentence in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Vitiyad bhayam bhavati. Dvitiya means second one. Prathama is first one. Dvitiya means second one. When we perceive a second object besides the self, then that second object is the source of fear, cause of fear. Dvitiya, from the second one, bhayam bhavati, fear comes. If there is no burglar, if there is no ghost, then where is the cause of fear? If I have eternal youth, which will not go away, then there is no cause of fear. Youth is there, it may go away. It is a quality, temporary quality which my body has, youth, or good health. Is subject to change, subject to loss, going. That's what fear is. Let me go away. I have this one. But if I am Atman or self, for Atman, there is no youth or old age or beginner, and there is no fear of losing anything. So when person is perceiving a second object, Dvitiya, then that is the source of all fear. Dvitiya dvaivayam bhavati. But Janaka had overcome that fear because he had transcended this plane of duality. He was established in non-dual knowledge. I am Atman, I am Brahman, I am Brahmasmi, had experienced it. For such a person, there is no fear because there is no second object from which fear can be anticipated. Just explained in a nice passage in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads, chapter 4, section 2, verse number 4. I'll just read it. Very short passage. A bigger passage, but I'll read a short part of it. Here is Yajnavalkya says to Janaka, Asango nahi sajjate, asito na vyatate narishyati. This one. Abhayam vai Janaka praptosi. Iti hovacha Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya says to Janaka, Abhayam Janaka praptosi. You have reached fearlessness. Abhaya means fearlessness, freedom from fear. How did Janaka become free from fear? By experiencing his true divine nature. As long as we are experiencing our body, mind, then fear is there. Body will go away one day. I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of old age. I'm afraid of sickness. So these all things that we possess. Anything that I have is not me. Any object that I have, like the body is something that I have. I'm not the body. I'm the self. So anything that I have is a second object, something that I possess, that causes fear. Any other person, any ghost or robber or old age or sickness or poverty, people have a lot of money, they're afraid of losing the money. Every day they watch stock market in the computer and their blood pressure goes up and the stock market goes down. This is fear. It's true. I can't blame them. It is their experience. You should not blame them. That is the fact of life for them. There's no joke for them. So, Vijayadve Mayam Bhavati. Abhayam Mai Janaka Praptosi Hovacha Yajnavalkya. And it's the full passage. I'll read the English. Sanskrit is. This self is that which has been described as not this, not this. Neti, neti. Iti. Described as not this, not this. It is imperceptible, for it is never perceived. Undecaying, no decay for the body and everything, all universe decays. Even galaxies also will disintegrate and merge into black hole, nothing. But Atman is imperishable, never decays, unattached, for it is never attached. Unfettered, it never feels pain or never suffers injury. Pain, injury, loss, all these problems accrue to where? To whom? Body, mind, not to the self. You have attained that which is free from fear, O Janaka. Abhayam mai praptosi. The only way to become completely, totally, permanently free from fear is to know our true divine nature, which is divine. As long as we identify with the body and the mind, fear is given, inescapable. That is the goal. Abhayam. Abhayam, this just the first quality. 9 things are there in the first verse and many more in these next 2 verses. See how many things are there to practice. Let us stop here. I have seen only 2 people in my life who are totally free from fear. Only 2 persons were there. One was a Swamiji. He was in Raipur. In Raipur, and now it is some Chhattisgarh. I don't know which state it is. The states are different now. There is a very big Ramakrishna ashrama started by Swami Atmanandji Maharaj. I happen to know him. Fortunate, rare person. And he was totally out of fear. No fear at all. And I heard from other people. I asked him, Maharaj, how did they become free from fear? He just laughed. He didn't explain, but he was totally fearless person. He lived in the Himalayas in a very place full of danger, no fear at all. And the other person I knew, he was not a Swamiji, but a Jnani. He came to this country a couple of times, and his name was Ranjit Maharaj from Mumbai. I went to his room in Mumbai, some very crowded place, third floor, old creaky building, staircases creaky, very old building, very crowded place. And in a corner room, that was where he lived, one person, family, and one room only. In that room, there was a cot, and there was a table on which his guru's picture photo was there. One Maharaj's photo was there. He was his guru. I forgot his name. And one stove was there for making tea. And one part of it was partitioned. That was the place where he could take bath. And the bathroom was a common bathroom for a whole lot of families at the end of the hallway. Small rooms on each side of the hallway, and each room has one family, 3-4 people staying there. That crowded kind of place in Mumbai. People live in very small quarters there. So I went to, he is totally out of fear. And I asked him, Maharaj, how did they become free from fear? I've heard that you have no. He didn't want to reply, but I asked him, Maharaj, how did they become free? And he told me. One day he was walking. He used to give classes in different parts of the city, Mumbai. All by walking. And he was walking in the very crowded street, and a car came. A lot of traffic there in Mumbai. And the car knocked him down. And there's no space there. So much traffic, people, animals, cars, and everything. So he fell down. And the driver applied the brake, fortunately, in time. So Maharaj fell down on the road, and the front wheel of the car came and just stopped touching his neck. If it had moved 1/4 of an inch, he would have been crushed. Neck would have been crushed. So he was lying there, and a lot of people gathered there, and Maharaj was lying there calmly. At that time, I asked him, were you afraid? He said, no. Why too afraid? Then why were you not afraid? I asked him. He's lying there about only 1/4 of an inch more means you would have gone. Even at that stage, he didn't have any fear. He said, I didn't have any fear. I asked him, why didn't you not anybody will be afraid under those conditions? Fear of death. Then no. He says, 2 things if you have, you will have no fear. What are 2 things that we should have to become free from fear? He said, you're not the body mind, the world is unreal. If you have firm faith in these 2 things, no fear, no sadness, no suffering, no pain. No pain, no suffering, nothing. But these 2 things you must be fully convinced of, not just believe. Experience. I'm not the body mind. That means I'm the Atman. He didn't say that one. And the world is unreal. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Upanishad says. If you have these 2, there's such a person, such people are there even now. That is Abhayam. That is a very high state. We are already people a lot of fear. I have a lot of fear. I'm not like Ranjit Maharaj or Atmananjit Maharaj. But you have to. Devotees can overcome fear in an easier way by having full faith in the compassion of God. The Lord has promised in the Gita and other books. In Gita itself, he has promised in several places that for devotees, the Lord will provide everything that we need and protect everything that we have. Yoga Kshema Mahamyam 922. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Yejana Paryapasate Tesham Nitya Viyuktanam Yogakshemam Mahamyaham, like that one. So if a devotee has full faith in God, then there is no fear. The Lord is protecting me. In the Bible, there is a very nice section called the Book of Psalms. There in the 23rd chapter, this very famous verse occurs in the Bible. It says, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not fear. The Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. He is taking care of me, God, and I am he's protecting me. What is there to me to be afraid of when when I am under his protection, under his care? What is there that I need? He provides everything. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not fear. Freedom from want, freedom from fear comes from devotion, firm devotion to God. Either jnana or devotion. Either saying, I'm not the body, mind, no fear. Or God is taking care of me, I'm a child, I'm a devotee, no fear. If you don't have either of these, then we have problem, we have fear. So let us stop here and say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavanta Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from diseases, ill health and other problems. May all know and realize and practice what is noble and dharmic and auspicious. May no one be subject to any kind of suffering or misery. Om peace. May there be peace and joy in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sarvam Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all. Stay well and God willing, see you next week. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
I wanted
Thank you,
to add
Swamiji.
what you just said, that, have the jnana or the bhakti, and that I have no fear. Well, like you said, at a higher stage, they are all aware of that and they are able to, at that stage. But people like us down here on earth, how do we implement that day by day in small dosages?
Okay.
So that we'll be fearless or work towards that.
Three things have to be done to become relatively free from fear. First thing is to take all preventive measures to prevent any problem that may come. You're afraid of so many different things happening, ill health, losing health and property or job or whatever. We are afraid of losing all those things. So how to prevent this loss? So you take preventive measures. That means to safeguard your health, you don't want to lose health. So you do proper exercise, follow the rules of health and good food and all those things, rules of health we have to follow so that we can reduce the chance of becoming sick. We can't totally stop it, but he will become sick and die. But we can postpone it and reduce the chance of becoming sick and one thing. Or buy insurance to safeguard the house and property, car, auto insurance, and those things. Somebody may steal the cars and preventive. We can't prevent 100%. There will still be a problem, but to some extent, prevention. Second thing is when the problems do come, in spite of having taken preventive measures, we take remedial measures, remedy the problem. I followed all the rules of health, but I became sick. Then what do? I seek remedy. I go to a doctor and seek medical help and take the medicine, whatever. That may remedy the problem fully or partially or not at all. In spite of taking medicine, sometimes health problem will not go away. Or it may go away partially, or some new problem may come. All the remedial measures we have available, we can take. Even then the problem persists. Then what to do? Practice what is called forbearance, deeksha. After having done everything that we can to prevent or to remedy any kind of problem, if still problem persists, then what cannot be cured has to be endured. Practice for tiksha, forbearance. That comes in the Gita several times. Kshama is called kshama. Forbearance. Because karma, no problem comes except as we have done something to warrant it.
Right.
Somebody famously said, no problem will come except as we have done something to make it happen. We have paved the way for it ourselves. Therefore, you have to go through the effect of our karma. All of the, nobody can escape.
Right. Consequences.
Even great Mahatmas like Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, how much health problem he had? What did he do in this life? Such a pure person, Bhagavan, he suffered so much pain due to a sarcoma of the elbow, kind of cancer. Those days in the 1940s, he passed away in 1950. There's not much modern treatment. We have so much medical advances happened in the last few decades. At that time in 1940, there was not much medicine available. Some homeopathy, herbal medicine, some they did surgery. He didn't want any surgery. He said, let the nature take its course. But the devotees insisted it. One surgery didn't help, the second surgery. It didn't go. Suffered a lot. Died of cancer.
So Sri Ramakrishna, throat cancer, yeah.
So practice forbearance after doing preventive remedial measures.
Right.
Then these are three things we have to do in the short run. In the long run, to become totally permanently free from fear, we have to realize God, know our divine nature. If I know I'm the self, I'm not the embodiment, there is no fear. That has to be kept as a long-term goal. You have to strive for it. But until that goal is reached, then these are short-term remedies. So the only permanent remedy for fear and all problems is to know God, or to experience self-knowledge, or pure devotion does the same thing. Shuddha Bhakti does the same thing. That you have to practice. That should go on all the time. But these are short-term remedies in the meantime. That is a lifelong goal, project.
But Swamiji, we are getting older and one of the spouses is going to leave the body and go. And then if you are the one left behind, then there is aloneness, loneliness. So how does one handle that? Because you can have Jnana Yoga and Bhakti and all that, but you don't have the spouse anymore. So how do you handle that? Loneliness, aloneness.
Married part for the second part of the question.
I said, how do you handle the loneliness and the aloneness when
loneliness,
as we get older, our spouse is going to go. One of them will go. The one that stays behind will experience that heartache.
That is, you can prevent it. We came alone and we are living alone. Last part of life is happens in single file. And all these associations are temporary. All associations, remember one thing, all associations are temporary. They have a beginning and an end, including our connection with the body. Everything
that is a fear also, being alone,
that we have, people in our lives, relatives, close relatives, children, family, everybody, and the body itself, money, everything itself, temporary possession. They are not there in the beginning, they will not be there in the end. We are there together. Either they'll be there and I have to leave, or I will be there and they will leave one by one, or all together. You have to be prepared for that. The only permanent companion is God. All other companions, all other possessions are temporary. We have to accept that one. You can't expect everything to be with us all the time. That won't happen.
Yeah, see, that is the other fear. We can overcome these fears.
Fear of loneliness.
Prevention, PR, remedy, and endure.
We can do that one. We can prevent other people living
right,
with us.
exactly. So that is a fear there of them.
You have to forbear it. Practice and forbearance. Something that cannot be cured, prevented, remedied, you have to bear it.
Okay.
So life is like that. Like the bubble on the surface of a water, they say, this moment it is there, next moment it is not there.
Mm.
So in the beginning of the 15th chapter, which we just concluded, very first verse, the Krishna Bhagavan compares this worldly life to a tree, which is called Ashwatha tree. Why Ashwatha tree? Because the word Ashwatha means not there tomorrow. Shwa means tomorrow. A means not. Tha means Tata. Tomorrow it is not. At least not in the same way as it is today. Different.
Mm.
So that's part of life. You have to accept. Thank you very much. All of you stay well.
Thank you.